Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my Agile friends. So even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream deeply rooted in ancient universal dreams. I have a dream that one day, we as citizens of the world will rise up and live out the true meaning of our creed. And we all hold these truths to be self-evident, that all humans are created equal, and that our planet Earth, and all her inhabitants deserve to have a future. This is the dream I have today. And of course, you'll have recognized it. I didn't invent it, but I did adapt it from Martin Luther King. So welcome, my Agile on the Beach friends. I spoke about planet Earth. Planet Earth. Who recognizes this picture? Yeah, it's a special picture, right? It's a picture called Earthrise. It's the first picture in 1968, taken by William Anders from lunar orbit. So it was in the Apollo 8 mission, and they actually set out to discover the moon. But, well, I have to quote again, as Bill said, "We set out to explore the moon and instead discovered Earth." And this picture, Earthrise by Bill Anders, could be considered the most influential sustainability picture ever taken, because this is the moment we started seeing planet Earth from a different perspective and started wondering, maybe this is a planet we need to care about. This is what the organization asked me about. Please scan it and give me feedback, but don't do it now because this will come back later on before you get out your phone and scan the QR code. Because before you give me feedback, you first need to listen to me for a while, so don't worry, that's why we'll come back in the end. Also, what will come back at the end is a question mark, because I won't have time for questions. Well, Caitlin is hoping I will, but that's unlikely, because we'll go at breakneck speed today because there's a lot to cover. Before we get started, I'd really like to know how worried you currently are about the climate. And I see people already grabbing their phone and scanning the Menti. Now, this is also testing in production because I integrated my Mentimeter in PowerPoint, which is an experiment. We'll see how it goes, and else we'll just do it with some raise of hands. We'll find solution. But does it actually work? The funny thing is, I don't see any results here. But that's okay, we'll skip out of this because we'll find another solution for this. Ah, you see. Now, of course, you're not seeing this in the presenter mode. Well, this is interesting for you because now I see what you voted and people are giving me thumbs up and I have no idea how to give you a show of this. Oh, well, shall I put up my laptop? No, I'll just tell you. Because what I see in my Mentimeter is that about 11 of you, there's quite a few people who actually checked in on the Mentimeter, 11 of you said, well, we can save the planet if we act now. And some people think we're all doomed. I have to admit, I agree with you. I actually think we're all doomed. But that still doesn't excuse us from doing the very best we can, I think. And the other options, of course, something is going on and climate change, what are we actually on about? Well, for those people who said climate change, what are you actually talking about? There we go. I'm going to show you some scientific data. This is not interpretation. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to fight with you about whether there is climate change or not, but this is factual data. This is data from NASA, and it's about how much CO2 there is in the atmosphere. And what you can see, self-evident, is that it is rising. So there is a lot of CO2 parts in the atmosphere. And one of the things that causes is that temperature is rising. This is what you see here is the temperature anomaly over the years. So also here, what you see is temperature is rising. Just a fact. I'm not interpreting anything. However, of course I'm here because I do want to convince you a little bit. I am a girl on a mission. So yes, this temperature rise has quite some risks. What this shows you from the World Wildlife Fund is what happens if our global temperature will rise with 1.5 degrees or even 2 degrees. And this is, of course, what we're all trying to prevent. We're trying to prevent the planet from warming up. Because there's so many things that happen if it warms up. Extreme weather, water. Have you ever thought about water availability? Clean water, drinking water, water for all kinds of purposes? Arctic sea level rise. I live in the Netherlands, sea level rise is a thing, but sea level rise is a thing here too, I'd imagine. I'm not going to explain the whole PowerPoint slide to you, but yes, there are quite some risks attached to global warming, to the warming of the planet. So, should we all cry and panic and say, well, we're all doomed, as we just had in the Menti? This is Greta Thunberg, of course, and she had she has numerous speeches, but one of the things she did is speak to the EU and say, well, that's the famous speech, how dare you? What she did is saying, look, all this is happening, temperature is rising, we are in a climate emergency, and you're doing nothing. I want you to act. So what Greta Thunberg did is say, it's time for action. It's a call for action. Thankfully, she's not on her own. Sustainability, this is a definition. Oh, you can't actually see that very well, the black on the green, but trust me, it says it's the 1987 United Nations Brundtland Commission definition that sustainability is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So what it basically means is we need to create a future for our next generations. And it was Greta Thunberg who, had this inspiring talk about action, but thankfully this is a United Nations definition. The United Nations also came up with ideas for how to create a more sustainable future for all of us. So these are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and they're spread out in different types of areas. And this is important. One of the things I'd like you to take out from this session is that sustainability isn't only about the planet. Yes, I started off with the CO2 rise and with the climate, with the temperature rise. Yes, it's about the planet, of course, and it's a rather urgent and pressing matter to try and, at least keep the temperature rise under control. But it's about other things too. So sustainability is also about people. 6 of these Sustainable Development Goals belong in, let's say, the people realm, the social sustainability realm. And we'll get back to that. It's also about prosperity, economics. So how do we divide the world's wealth a little more equal than we do this right now? It's about the planet, of course. This you all know well, climate action. And it's about peace and partnerships. Partnerships because we can't do this alone. I can't solve the climate challenge on my own, and not even we, us here together, can solve it on our own. We need to create partnerships because we need to do it together. We want to go far, so we need to do together. Together we can, by the way. And peace, peace is such a fundamental need for human beings. If there is no peace, nothing else will matter. So, 17 Sustainable Development Goals, also the United Nations are trying to create a bit of a better future. And of course, don't panic, as Douglas Adams also said already, because I think we can. If we act now, there's a lot we can do. Or maybe even if we can't, as I told you, I actually think we're all doomed. The planet is going to take care of itself. I'm not so sure if we can actually save it, but still, I think we need to take the moral ambition on to say, we will do all that we can. We'll try our very best. So at least, we can proudly say we did all we could. So don't panic. And you people here on this wonderful Agile on the Beach conference and in the business agility track, You're all Agile people. You've got what it takes to actually make a huge difference here. You, all of you, yes, I'm talking to you. You've got what it takes. Because climate change is a complex challenge. Complexity, volatile, uncertain, ambiguous. Does that ring a bell? VUCA world? I guess so. You do things in your daily work every day. You have no idea how to solve things. You create a small experiment. And then you try it out and you learn and you inspect and adapt. That's what you do in your daily job. Wonderful, because I think that's precisely what we need here. So Agilists, yes, we need you. We need you to help, well, solve the climate crisis, or at least do the very best we can. So don't panic. Don't panic and do something. Well, this slide doesn't need any explanation, I'd say. And especially now, because we're in July, mosquito season. And we can. We've proven time and again that we can. This is the Dutch National Monument for Slavery. And what it shows, and it happens to be that last Monday, the 1st of July, was Katie Kotti, the day that the Dutch finally abolished slavery, and we, well, both remember and celebrate the end of the breaking the change. That's what Katie Kotti means. And what you see here is at the end is a group of chained slaves, so the situation they wanted to move away from. And then you see them breaking free in the middle. And then, of course, the center image is the freedom. So we can. It took us far too long, if you ask me, but we can. Finally, we've done something about this. And we're still not there yet, but we can. And yes, we can, because this is an image of data on the ozone layer. And it's slowly healing itself. And yes, it's going very slowly, and we haven't solved the problem. This isn't an invitation to now say, oh, start using all these CFKs again. But the ozone layer is slowly healing itself. And I'm showing you this not because of the necessity of the data, but so that you can walk out of this door thinking, yes, as a society, as citizens of the world, we can. We can actually solve problems, however complicated they are. So, system change, that's what we need. We need to change the system and not the climate. System, again, I'm assuming this rings a bell for you. Systems, that's what we work with, right? As Agilists, we work with systems all the time. So today, I want to talk about changing the system. And now, systems can mean many things. Change the system could mean, well, influence how you vote, for example. I mean, then you influence the political system. Change your buying behavior. You, as a consumer, you decide how economy evolves, partly. And system is, of course, also the economic system itself. And for us, system can also be IT system. Now, I wanted to make this a very interactive presentation, but I now was shocked because I can't switch between the screens. You're now taking out your Menti, but then I can't show you what the responses are. So let's do this differently. So what does system mean to you? Shout out a few words. What does system mean? Yeah, organizational culture. Give me some other examples. What can system mean?
Application.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Product development, right?
Structures.
Structures, yes. In organizations. Sorry?
Regulation.
Yes, yes. Very important regulations, yes. So, what is interesting, and that's why this question was in, even though I can't show you the answers, but still, you'll get the idea that system can mean many things. And that's okay, because I think we can influence all of these systems. I think today is a day for voting in the UK. So with your vote, you influence, well, the political system. The political system has influence on regulations. So you have far more power than you think. Remember the mosquito? You have influence. You influence all these systems in different ways. Anyway, today we're here to talk about economics for product development, because we're at Agile on the Beach and you're here in the business agility track because you want to hear a little more about well, how do we do this in product development? How do we influence this product development system? Can we do this a little more sustainably? And I'm here to tell you, yes, you can. Together we can. Nobody can do this on their own. You need to do this with your team, in your organization, with the structures that are around you. But yes, you can. And maybe you notice I'm a little nervous. And that's funny because I'm not really usually very nervous when I do a presentation. But you are here on a special day because I'm introducing something I've been working on for a while. And that is my DPS, my donut product strategy. What I've done, I've been looking at donut economics by Kate Wayworth. We'll come across that. That's what I promised you when I submitted the talk. And I've adapted donut strategy for product development, for business agility, really. So I'm going to take you on a crash course on economics, modern economics. So we'll forget about capitalist economics. And I'll show you how you can adapt these practices in product development. So welcome to my talk today. And now you also know why sometimes my voice is a little shaky because I think, oh, this is so exciting. And I'm so happy you're all here. This is me. This is not a very interesting slide because I think that's not very interesting talking about me. However, what I do want to point out is on the top right-hand side, you see infrastructure. That's because I'm a product person myself, and I often find myself in infrastructure environments. So I'm often a product owner or product manager in IT infrastructure. And you also see, well, this really old guy over there, that happens to be Marcus Aurelius. I'm a Stoic practitioner today. I'm not talking to you about Stoicism. However, I will find a way to sneak some Stoicism into this talk. And this is my beautiful daughter, Iris. She's just turned 13. And she's the reason why I'm here today. We spoke about sustainability and future generations. Well, she's my reason to think about how can we leave this planet Earth a little cleaner, a little better, a little more beautiful than how we found her. So she's my trigger. And for you, it might be something else. Maybe you have kids, maybe you don't, maybe it's people around you, maybe you have another reason. I'm not here to judge, and it doesn't matter wherever you are on this course of sustainability, but whatever choice you make sure you do it, well, actually, for your own conscience. Do the right thing for the future generations. And I do things because imagine in a few years, my daughter is going to ask me, so, Mum, you knew about this climate challenge, right? I mean, you were talking in conferences about it. And then what did you do? And I really want to have a clear conscience. I really want to be able to look myself in the eye and say, well, I really did all I could. And all I could, in my case, I just told you I was a product person in IT infrastructure. I did things at home. You probably do things at home. I don't know, you separate your plastic, you throw glass bottles in a recycling bin, whatever. You probably do things at home. And then I started thinking, well, I spend rather a lot of time at work. And as I just said, climate emergency is a complex emergency. There is no simple solution to climate change. What if I started applying these principles I do at home also at work? I also spend a lot of time at work. I mean, I work 30 hours a week, so maybe I can even have more impact when I apply sustainability principles at work. And of course, I love to keep looking at this picture, but I'm here to invite you to do the same. So you do things at home, but do things at work too. Try applying sustainability principles in your daily work. Imagine what an impact you can make. And as product people, I think we should talk more about economy anyway. Far too often as product people, we just build nice things just because we can. Myself included, by the way. But I really think we should take a more economic look on how we develop products. Let's say a more scientific approach to what we build, why we build it, how often we build things, and what we need. So, 8. It's not 8 because I have 8 minutes left. It's 8 because this is the 8th Sustainable Development Goal. It's about decent work and economic growth. We're going to talk about economic growth today. Linear economy. This is, let's say, traditional, whatever traditional means, economic system. So we take resources from planet Earth or elsewhere, we make things, we use them, and then we dispose of them. This is a, let's say, well, not so much traditional, because if I say traditional, I mean a mere 500 years ago, nothing went to waste. So recent tradition is this. This is the capitalist economic model. And that's all about money. In the end, everything that's capitalist, well, capital money, is usually seen as monetary value. When it's about product portfolios, we talk about money. When it's about beyond budgeting, we talk about money. It's all about the money. It's a nice song too, by the way. It's all about the money. And also in product management, the product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team. This value usually is money, making money, increasing profits, increasing revenue, increase margins, save costs. I didn't invent this. This is from Lucas and Schuurman in their wonderful book about product management. This is all about the money. So we as product people are involved in the monetary system big time. And metrics like customer satisfaction, because you now will tell me, no, I measure customer satisfaction. But deep down, really, that's usually a measure for growth or for a bigger market share or something that has to do with money after all. So it's all about growth and market share. And you can see this. This is just a slide from the scrum.org. This is their evidence-based management. It's about metrics. And all of these metrics are either dashboard metrics or metrics that are secretly or not so secretly about the money. And then we started thinking, not me, but a lot of smart other people, well, there has to be another way of doing economy, making the world go round. There must be better ways to do this in a little more sustainable way. And one of the things that came up is circular economy. So in circular economy, Ellen MacArthur Foundation has a lot of information on that. In the circular economy, we refuse to take resources from planet Earth. We try to, reduce what we use, and we try to find other ways to keep things in the system. So circular economy is trying to break the change from the capitalist model and from the endless cycle of, well, it's actually not a cycle, the one-way road from taking things from the earth and then disposing them as waste. I'm pretty sure you've all known things, you're all familiar with things from the circular economy model, and you're probably recycling things at home. That you're recycling, maybe your plastics or your glass bottles, has everything to do with that people started thinking, we need to rethink this economic system. There has to be a better way. This is something you probably recognize. So, circular economy has a few strategies, a few principles. Now, this is a horrible slide for you to look at, very dense in information. But what this shows you is it goes from linear to circular economy, and it shows you that some of the strategies you know, recycling, we just spoke about it, is all at the bottom. It's called R8, that's unimportant. But one of the strategies is the recycling one. But that's actually only saying something about, well, what you take and what you give back to the system. And you, all smart people in this conference and in agility and in product management, well, what you actually do is, of course, you think about, well, maybe extending lifespans and stuff like that. But what you really want is to build better products, right? That's what you do. You build products. So what I want to focus on today is the top 3 things. The refuse, rethink, reduce. Remember them because they'll be coming back. Refuse, rethink, reduce. Refuse, well, maybe don't take these resources. And we spoke about resources in this context, it's resources from planet Earth. But resources is, of course, well, people are never resources, but it's taking the energy from people and building stuff. Maybe don't do that. Refuse to build something, or don't expand it. At least don't make it any bigger. Rethink. In the picture before it said reform, but the people in circular economy also thought reform was a bit of an awkward term. So we decided to relabel it to rethink. Consider again what value is for your product. Does it have to be money? Does it have to be growth? I don't think so. And reduce. Just consume a little less. Maybe you don't need this. Maybe you don't need to buy it. Make it on demand. Anybody making stuff on demand? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is one of the books that's over there is printed on demand. You can buy it and then yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, refuse, rethink, reduce. We're getting there. The world has enough for everybody's need, but not for everybody's greed. This is the philosophical baseline. There we go. I'm going to skip this because I'm far too worried that I can't show you the results and then you'll be all excited and then I can't tell you. We'll have to do that some other time, all right? So, circular economy, wonderful principles. And then the Dalai Lama says beautiful things like, well, the planet doesn't need more successful people, whatever success is. We need peacemakers, healers, restorers, storytellers, and lovers of all kind. And then the word lover triggered me. Because circular economy is about the system. It's actually not about people. And then there was this person, Kate Raworth, wonderful person, and she wrote a book on donut economics, and that's why you're all here for. So here are the donuts coming up. She said, yes, we need to look at planetary boundaries. Yes, we need to save the planet, but remember we started with the Sustainable Development Goals. It's not only about the planet. Super important, but there's people on this planet. We need to talk about people too. So she came up with this principle of donut economics. We need to meet the needs of all within the means of the planet and balance between human development and planetary boundaries. Now, you're all distracted because you look at donuts and it's almost lunchtime, so I'm quickly moving on to the next slide. This is a donut. You clearly see that this is the same thing, right? Donuts. So what she said is there is an inner social foundation. That's the sort of layer we shouldn't drop below, a sort of social minimum. And then you see the planetary boundaries, the outer ring of the donut, so to speak, and that's the ecological ceiling. So these are the boundaries, this is the bandwidth we're talking about. And give you a second to sort of let that sink in. It means we're going to move in a bandwidth. We're taking a different perspective and we're trying to see how we can stay within these boundaries. Are we doing very well yet? No, I don't think so. The red boxes mark where we've already crossed boundaries. And as you see, the social foundation is not doing so well. We're crossing the boundaries, the minimum for economic thriving on every account. So we've got work to do on the social thing too. Even if you think as a product person, I haven't got anything with the CO2 and whatever, it's not for me, at least also focus on the social foundations there. So these are the minimal social boundaries for all of us to thrive. This is another horrible slide because now you're wondering 7 ways to do the product. I can't read that. I'm just showing you this because this is what Kate Raworth in her wonderful book Donut Economics is describing, like how can you think like a modern day economist? And these 7, let's say, ways to think will come back because ta-ta-ta-ta, here we are, the core of my presentation. You're still wondering, what am I supposed to do with this? I didn't study economy and there was a reason why I didn't do that. Well, I think as product people, we're in the heart of changing this economic system. So yes, we should, and yes, you should care, and yes, you can. Remember this principle? You is also thinking this is the best agile principle imaginable. I love this. Agile principle number 10. Simplicity is essential, and somehow it's a lost art in agility, right? So I would propose we bring that back. And as agilists, we do experiments. I tested this picture on my husband and he thought about the chemical factories and what have you. So that maybe that wasn't the best image, but for me this image represents experiments. We're trying things out. And that is precisely what we need to do in this sustainability realm as well. Because I can't give you the answers. I can't tell you what to do to find more economic sustainability strategies. Something's happening with my sound all of a sudden, but well, you're distracted. I'll just carry on. We'll see what happens. So we do experiments because that's the only way. I can't give you the solution to what we need to do. You just need to experiment and inspect and adapt. But you all know that. So here is my donut product strategy. Here we go. This is the roller coaster. Yeah, you all braced? It's 3 principles, 7 practices, and 1 mantra. The 3 principles, you can breathe quietly because you've heard them before. We spoke about them. Refuse, rethink, reduce. You get the idea. It's about thinking, you see, and Caitlin has done it again. Yes, wonderful. So, 3 principles. Before you do anything in product management, consider whether you actually need it, whether you, actually need to build it, or whether you need people to consume what you build. And rethink what usage of your product means. And we've got 7 practices. And these, I won't be calling them out to you because they'll all come back. And there's 1 mantra. And people from you who've recognized from my introduction slide, yes, I see people nodding. It's from Extreme Programming, a principle called you ain't gonna need it. Well, if you keep that at heart as a product person, you'll come far, I know for sure. Because every time you want to build something, do we really need it? Well, the answer very often is, you probably don't. So, these are the 7 principles, the 7 ways that Kate Rayward says new economy people need to think. And these economist ways we can apply in product management. Change the goal. Change your product vision to include sustainability. Now, some of you are thinking, what am I looking at? This is a Dutch sentence, I can't read that. That's beside the point. What I want to show you here is this was a product vision of a team I worked with, an IT infrastructure team. They were building the platforms for other teams. And it was something about, we do the IT infrastructure and for the other teams, and yada, yada, yada. And then we added, this is our vision, and all the while we're reducing our CO2 emissions wherever and whenever we can in everything we do. We changed the product vision, or we added something to the product vision. And this was at the start of my sustainability journey, so then I was in the carbon funnel only thinking about CO2. And I'm pretty sure in your situation, you find other ways for adapting your product vision. But change the goal. Change your product vision. Change product goals. We have a vision, and then we have concrete product goals in which we try to sort of come closer to what you're trying to build. We had I see people smiling, my husband, because he reads the Dutch. Are there any other Dutch people in the room? It basically says that their first goal is, it says uitfaseren oude meuk, which means as much as get rid of all the old rubbish. And it was formulated as unsubtle as that. And then we added, as a product goal, keep track of how much waste we actually get rid of. We tried to actually clean up, get rid of the waste. That was a concrete product goal we had for the first quarter in the last year. So change your product goals. We were launching the Ansible automation platform, and we were trying to, that was the quarter for the second or the third quarter product goal. Energy efficiency, because if you don't use the energy, you don't use the resources for it, and you don't produce more CO2 emissions. Set up sustainability monitoring. You've got the idea here. Change your vision, change your product goal, and change your sprint goal. We happen to work in sprints, maybe you do something else, other iterations, that's not the point, but you can cascade it down. Change the vision, change your product goal, and change what you do on a regular basis, what you do every iteration. So we made them rather concrete. You have a few examples here. We started doing a baseline measurement. At least let's see how much emissions our servers have. Let's start off with that. Well, you know how it works with an iteration goal. You make it smart and concrete so you can work towards your product vision. Change the goal. See the big picture. You all do this as product people. There is more than just your sprint, just your little thing you're focusing on. Pay attention to your entire value cycle. Cradle to cradle. This is what we say in Agile, right? We do cradle to cradle. But who of you actually does that? When do you carry things to the grave? How often do we retire systems, applications, features? You should. Try and throw things away. Not only evident waste, but maybe clean up your product anyway. Whoever cleans up a feature that's actually never used, and you know it, because at one point you did a measurement of how often it was used. Yes, I see people nodding. Clean it up, clean it up. Do it. And Scout. Apparently this is a Scout. You'll have to trust me on that. But, we have the Scout rule for software developers. Have a Scout rule for ourselves. Every time you touch your backlog, clean out stuff. Throw things out that you're never going to do anyway. You ain't going to need it. The third practice that refers to the donut economy from Kate Raworth is nurture human nature. Remember, it's also about social sustainability. It's also about people, and it's also about what do we actually think is valuable. Value could be something different than money. Developer experience is about how people feel. Interactions with nature. Focus on humanity. We're all humans after all, right? It's all about people. And it's about social sustainability in the sense of diversity and inclusion. If you as a product person don't feel proud about something, or you can't work with things for the planet, work with social inclusion. Work with diversity and inclusion. Try and build a product that's more inclusive. We had an example, this is an example I wanted to give you, about our North Star metric. Meaningful interactions with our archives in the light of history. Before, our North Star metric was, this was for the Dutch National Archives, before the metric was as many people retrieving archives as we can. And then we said, well, what use is that? People just stopping by and opening some archives, that's of no use. We want meaningful interactions, so people actually learning from the history that are in the archives. So maybe less, no growth, but more meaningful. And this is an example of Houdini, an outdoor clothing company that actually does things with a degrowth strategy. So they wanted more experience of nature for people with the same source of use of resources. So that means they're not making more products, they're not producing more jackets, but they want people to have more experiences in nature. You realize how revolutionary that is. They said, we're not producing more clothes. We want you to have more interactions in nature. Go out and do something else. Focus on human nature. Get savvy with dynamic complexity. This is what you do, right? You entangle knots. And I'm going to skip through this really quickly because complex adaptive systems, this is what you work with. This is what we do in agility. So I don't need to spend a lot of time here. And a lot of economic values, things we focus on, are actually, well, elusive. We think we have things under control, but you all know that. That's what we do in agility. We don't. You don't actually know. So start working with metrics, well, loosely, and define the bandwidth. Remember the bandwidth from the donut? Try and see if you can play around a little, because you have no control anyway. It's a dynamic system. You don't know how things will play out. And of course, you can build in quality. This is a definition of done. It's in Dutch. That's not the point. But the point is also in your definition of done. You can, of course, add, you can ask your team, invite your team to bring in sustainability. Each item you could produce, you could sort of check on that we find the most sustainable solution. Design to distribute. Love only grows when you share it. Focus a little more on love, right? Have stakeholder conversations. Ownership, who owns the product? Maybe you can share it. Talk to your stakeholders about this. Regenerative by design, you'll discover this is a practice I still haven't quite grasped because it's about forest fires. But why that is important is a forest fire is, however horrible, sometimes you need to burn things before you can make space for new things. Eco-cycle, the nature is an eco-cycle. What if we bring the eco-cycle in product management? Let go of things, burn things, creative destruction. That's what nature is doing, right? This is biomimicry. Let go of things. Burn them. Let go of them. Well, don't literally burn people or burn things, but you get the idea. And get rid of your zombies. One thing we did is we looked at our server park and we saw that there was many servers not used, or utilization only 18%. And we tried to clean that up. We got rid of all our zombies. And that had a huge impact. I see Stuart nodding. You must be knowing that. Useful production. This is the regeneration. And by now you're all thinking, okay, we're almost ready for lunch. But keep in mind, rethink, reduce, refuse. Maybe you don't need it. Remember the mantra. You'll be fine. Tidy first. And this is just also a lovely picture. And this is things I've been talking to you about all the time. Be agnostic about growth. It doesn't have to be bigger to be better. Remember, we were in the keynote, and it was, well, if you scale it, we think if you scale it, it'll even out. But it doesn't. If you scale it, it scales hate too. So keep it small, and maybe with local production. And you can find all kinds of ways to make a smaller impact. However, if we all do that everywhere, the impact will be huge. So be a bit of a lazy product person. Refuse to do it, rethink what value is, and reduce. Now, this was the sort of handout slide. This is the capture of all I've been telling you. 3 principles, 7 practices, and 1 mantra. You ain't gonna need it. Well, this I'm quickly skipping. Ha! All right, well, we're almost there. Last thing between you and lunch as well. Kermit, no, it's not easy, but together we can. And I think this is important to keep in mind. If we all think somebody else is going to do it, then nobody will. And I promised you to stick in a little bit of stoicism. Let's waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Just be one. Just get started instead of talking about what good will be. So remember to act, do something. Start small and experiment. And one thing you can definitely do is sign the Agile Sustainability Manifesto. A manifesto that came up, of course, a variation on the Agile Manifesto, and it focuses on Agile sustainability values. It was such a good idea, that green, because I thought, well, it's sort of a green talk, and then apparently the green and black doesn't come out very nicely. But trust me, this is about the Sustainability Manifesto. There's many books that inspired me. They're all there, and I've got an invitation for you. Because if you really think, oh, I need to, read up on this book or that, or I'm really intrigued, come up to me and convince me, and you can take the book home. So that's the book I think you, could or should. You shouldn't do anything about sustainability. I promise you I wouldn't have any time for questions. However, I am around today and tomorrow, and please come up to me. Because as I said, you were here, my launching party of my idea of this donut product strategy, but it needs improving, of course. I need to inspect it and adapt it. So by all means, give me feedback, give me idea, give me tips, and share them, and ask your questions. Now, this is nice. I can skip this. This is the question about the feedback for the session. This is what the organization really appreciates. I think Steve mentioned it this morning. So you can tell me what you thought about the session. And I remember my dream, that dream I had about that we all rise up as citizens of the world to live up to our creed. And we live out the true meaning. And we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all humans, all of us, are created equal, and that our planet Earth and all our inhabitants deserve to have a future. This is the dream I have. And do the right thing. Do the right thing for these future generations. And I'd like to end with a quote from Rabbi Hillel from about 2,000 years ago. And he said, well, if I am for myself alone, then who am I? And if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? And that was my thought.